Dating can be the most exciting and terrifying part of life. I can remember the first time I held my wife's hand. I wanted to hold her hand, but I wasn't sure if she wanted to hold my hand. I remember what she was wearing that evening. I can remember how she even did her hair. She looked beautiful, and I really wanted to hold her hand, but I was scared to. Finally, I got the courage up, and as we walked side by side with a big group of our friends, I reached over and our hands touched, and I slid my hand into her hand. She didn't recoil and slap me. She didn't pull her hand away from my hand. She returned the gentle grip on my hand and looked over at me and smiled. What a relief. And what a feeling to have a show of affection returned. You see, all of those wild feelings we get when we fall in love are a result of God's gift to us in the form of relationships. In the beginning of the Bible, it says that it's not good for man to be alone, and that God would make a helper comparable to him. He didn't make the same individual. He made a different one with different gifts so they could complement each other. So when you see an attractive person and they see you and the sparks start to fly, this isn't a bad thing. These are feelings and attractions that are something that God put in us for our good. Romance is an idea that originated with God. So what's the point of dating? Well, the simple answer is dating is an interview for marriage. You are looking for a lifelong partner that you can do life with. You're looking for specific things in a person that will bring happiness to a marriage. And you're also looking for things that might not be what you have in mind for a life partner. How do you know what to look for? What guidance does the Bible have for us in dating and looking for a potential husband or wife? Let's check it out. You might think of the Bible as mostly parables, inspiring stories, and some Bible prophecy added in. But God cares about our relationships and gives us great dating advice. He created these feelings of romance and love, and He wants us to be happy and fulfilled. So He was sure to add some great relationship advice in the Scriptures. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers." What does unequally yoked mean? A yoke was used to harness two animals to pull a plow for farming. We see the term a yoke of oxen in the Bible several times. The oxen would be the same size, so the yoke would fit evenly with the animals working shoulder to shoulder. Now, to be unequally yoked would be like having a 2,000-pound ox and a miniature donkey harnessed up next to each other to plow a field. The yoke would fit awkwardly, if at all. The ox would be doing all of the pulling, and the mini donkey would be struggling along, making things more difficult. Scripture compares this to a Christian marrying or dating someone who doesn't believe in God. Why would Scripture discourage this? Well, your life is going to have lots of complications if you and the person you are dating believe differently. The boundaries you would have as a Christian are not there for the non-believer. The priorities in life will be different for the person who doesn't believe in God. There will be a different moral standard, and all these things combined are going to create a variety of obstacles that will make doing life with this person extremely difficult, especially if you marry them and have children. Do the children go to church or not? Do they believe in God or not? Do you end up fighting your spouse on these things instead of supporting each other? Probably. God's guidance is that you should date and marry people who believe what you believe. Why? It's going to be a much easier life for you. You'll have a spiritual support instead of a spiritual obstacle and spiritual barriers. Find someone who loves God in addition to loving you. Proverbs 31:30 says, "Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." Here the words fear mean to honor or respect God. You might find the most beautiful woman or the most handsome man, but if they don't have God as the center of their life, find somebody who does. When we have God as the center of our lives, we will approach dating with some boundaries. The Bible gives us some very valuable advice on setting boundaries in our relationships, specifically boundaries regarding sexual involvement. It is clear in the Bible that sexual activity should be reserved for a married couple, and there are several reasons for this. First, sex creates a bond with someone that God only intended for husbands and wives to experience together. If you're dating someone, you haven't decided yet if that is the person you will commit to spending the rest of your life with. You might change your mind, so until you make that commitment to them and to God, We are told in Scripture to set a boundary and to keep that until we make that commitment. Second, in addition to intimacy between a husband and a wife, the result of sexual activity can result in pregnancy. Again, something that is made for husbands and wives to enjoy in raising a family together. Kids need a mom and they need a dad. And sexual activity very likely can result in pregnancy, and that is something God created as a part of His plan for marriage. So this is another very good reason to set up boundaries when you are dating and commit to not crossing certain lines in your relationship. It's important that you date someone who has similar values in this area so you can keep these boundaries. 1 Corinthians 5:11 says, "What I meant was that you are not to keep company with anyone who claims to be a brother Christian but indulges in sexual sins." Find someone with similar values. When I was young, my dad said that next to my decision to follow Christ, the biggest decision was who I was going to marry. I'll never forget this. He said that 90% of my happiness or misery can come from this one decision, and that's true. Because it's such an important decision, it is a great idea to spend some time in prayer about who you date or who you will marry. The God who invented love and invented all these emotions is willing to help you in this area. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Isaiah 30:21, and it says, "And whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear this command behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" When we are staying close to Jesus and asking Him to guide us, He will point us in the right direction, even in our love lives. Here are a few more bits of wisdom from Scripture in looking for people to date or marry. Avoid dating people who have a bad temper. Proverbs 22:24 says, "Keep away from angry, short-tempered men or women, lest you learn to be like them and endanger your soul." Date someone with a good attitude. Romans 15:5-6 says, "May God, who gives patience, steadiness, and encouragement, help you to live in complete harmony with each other, each with the attitude of Christ towards each other." Date someone who encourages you and is supportive. Philippians 2:1-2 says, "Is there any such thing as Christians cheering each other up? Do you love me enough to want to help me? Does it mean anything to you that we are brothers in the Lord, sharing the same Spirit? Are your hearts tender and sympathetic at all? Then make me truly happy by loving each other, working together with one heart and mind and purpose." Here are some things to avoid on dating. Romans 13:13 says, "Be decent and true in everything that you do so that all can approve of your behavior. Don't spend your time in wild parties and getting drunk or in adultery and lust or fighting or jealousy." If your date involves alcohol, you're dating the wrong person. Proverbs 31 gives great advice on finding a wife, but those qualities also fit for finding a husband. Someone who is a hard worker, someone honorable, someone who will be a good parent, and most importantly, someone who loves God. There is no rush to start dating. Don't feel like you need to date someone just because your friends are dating or they are pressuring you to get into a relationship. Approach this part of your life with prayer, and it is a great idea to listen to the advice of people who have been successful in this area. I've done premarital counseling with many couples that are about to get married, and one thing I advise them to do is talk to a married couple that has been married for more than 50 years and ask them what their secret is to a lasting relationship. Getting advice from people with lots of successful relationship experience is so valuable. One thing I do know is that the God who created the feelings of love and romance in our hearts wants us to experience these with someone who will love us in return and be a support to us in our relationship with Jesus. When we find someone like that and embark on the journey of lifelong partnership in the form of marriage, God will bless us in ways that will be the highlight of our life here on earth. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says, "And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken." If your relationship involves you, the person you come to love, and the God who loves you, that threefold cord will be the strength of your life and will hold your relationship together. Any relationship you have needs God at the center of it. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. God has good plan for you in all aspects of your life, even your love life. Stay faithful to His guidance in this area. and you will experience the happiness that He wants you to have. I'm Jamey Houghton with 832.